which is a 41-member organization coalition that represents agriculture, wildlife, and recreation organizations across the state. It's a broad group, so I provided what our coalition affectionately calls our NASCAR slide with all of our member organization logos on it for you. On behalf of the coalition, I respectfully request the introduction of 25 RS 0348. This bill would establish a state conservation fund. It's an updated version of the coalition's bill that was heard last year in Chairman Rogers' committee. The coalition has taken the past year to work with legislators and other stakeholders for this improved version, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that committee members might have.
Thank you, Justin. Committee questions?
Explain more. What do you do? What does the bill do?
Yes, so the bill would establish the state conservation fund, which would provide monies to working lands, and by that, conservation on agricultural lands, wildlife, similar habitat type projects, and then outdoor recreation. I can get more into the details of the bill as well. I have the RS copy if you're interested. I don't know how much Madam Chair would like me to go forward.
I think we should just keep it at a minimum today. We've got a list that Layla can pass out to all committee members that show all the members of the coalition. So that, okay. You can just pass them out now, yeah. I believe Representative Carlin has some guests that she would, thank you, Justin, that she would like to introduce.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If you'd just stand up for me, please. This is members of our Flint Hills Leadership Group in Manhattan and Pot County, and tell me the counties.
Well, we are Riley County representative.
Right, but our group includes
Riley, Pot, Clay, Wabaunsee,
Morse.
Gary.
Yeah. So these folks are having their last day of leadership school here, and so they're come to the Capitol every year to see what we do. And thank you, Madam Chair, for allowing me to say hello to them.
Madam Chair?
Thank you. Welcome. Yes, Representative Curtis.
Just a quick question on bill introduction. Do we need a motion to accept that bill introduction? I didn't know if that was something that, I know in some committees we do that, and I just didn't know if that was something that protocol-wise we needed to do. So I didn't want to make sure we misstepped that.
Thank you. I should have asked if there were any objections. Seeing none, the bill is accepted as read. Thank you. Today, we're going to be hearing from the Kansas Board of Veterinary Examiners and the Board of Accountancy. Is the representative for the Board of Veterinary Examiners here?
Madam Chair, this is Luke Drury with Kansas Legislative Research. Mark Olson is in attendance with us today. However, he is joining us via WebEx. If you'd like, I can go over the budget summary. We went over it previously this week. I can go back over it, or if you'd like to go ahead and just have him jump in, whatever you want to do, Madam Chair.
No, I would like for you to go over the budget summary, and then we'll ask Dr. Olson for any questions. Representative Alcala.
Well, I was going to make a suggestion, but I think you handle it. I figured I didn't think he was here. We just deferred for another meeting when they can show up, but I think you got it. Thanks.
Okay, Luke, it's all yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As indicated, Mark Olson, the Executive Director of the Board of Veterinary Examiners, is with us today via WebEx. And I did go over the budget summary with you all a little bit earlier this week when we went through Budget 101. So you all should have a copy of that. In addition to that, let me see if I can pull up the screen a bit bigger. The Mark's testimony you all should have Mark's testimony as well. Sharday, do you know if the testimony has gotten to the committee?
I do not believe they have received the testimony. Do you want to send it to me and I can get some copies made?
Sure. Yes, I will do that. Okay. I apologize for that, Madam Chair, but he does have some testimony, and I'll push that over.
Never
Alrighty.
mind. I think we have it.
No, I just sent it over, Sade. Okay. All right, Madam Chair, if it's all right with you, I can go ahead and start the budget summary for veterinary examiners.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. I thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, members of the committee. My name is Luke Drury. I'm a senior fiscal analyst with Kansas Legislative Research Department, and I will be going over the Board of Veterinary Examiners budget summary with you all today. On page 1 is includes figure 1, which is the budget summary, which gives you an overview of expenditures both for actual fiscal year 2024, in addition to the agency's request for 25 and 26, along with the Legislative Budget Committee's recommendations for 25 and 26. I would note on this front table, this only has 25 and 26. However, this is one of those agencies that is a biennial agency. So the agency's budget request does include numbers for FY 2027. It's just not simply included on this front page. Underneath that, figure 1 is a brief agency overview of what the Board of Veterinary Examiners does. You turn over to page number 2. This is the beginning of the analysis, and that is for FY 2025. The agency's request for FY 2025 is not different than the agency's approved number for FY 2025. And so therefore you will see on figure 4, no data entries and the no narrative entries for items 1, 2, and 3. There are no changes submitted by the agency for FY 2025. Moving on into page 3, which is FY 2026 analysis. I like to refer members to figure 7, the budget or the summary of budget request. Again, as I discussed a little bit earlier this week, it's not dissimilar to a ledger that you would maybe keep for a personal checkbook, whatever else. It's an easy tracking mechanism for you all to see those individual changes. Those numbers that are on the left-hand side, starting with number 1, no enhancement requests, then do correspond with the narrative entries down below. The starting point is the approved number for FY 2025. So, Madam Chair, item number 1, agency enhancement request. The agency did not submit any enhancement requests for FY 2026. Item number 2 are private vehicle miles. The agency's estimate or agency's request does reflect a $2,100 increase above the 2025 approved number for private vehicle miles. The agency is indicating that that is because of a couple of new board members that live in Western Kansas and then commuting to the agency's headquarters. This agency is located in Wamego for a board member meeting. So an increase there of $2,100. You will then see a bullet here that identifies at the bottom of page 3 what the agency's request is to add $2,100. The LBC's recommendation is no changes to that. So that is to say the LBC does not recommend deleting that. They recommend that $2,100 stay. And you'll see that throughout the rest of this budget presentation.
Luke, could you,
Yes.
just for our audience, explain the LBC just very briefly and what their actions were this past fall?
Sure, absolutely, Madam Chair. So as discussed a little bit with the committee during Budget 101, this process the budget process that is going on now is a bit different than previous years. While the presentation of the budgets and the mechanisms of a budget bill and that remain the same, how we are where we are in regard to the starting point being the LBC was that over the summertime, there was a special committee that studied the budget process, studied statutes, when budgets were updated, changes, the process of it, how other states do budgets, etc. As a result of that special committee, the LCC created what KLRD has called, and the shorthand here says LBC, the enhanced LBC, essentially a larger legislative budget committee. During the interim as well, after that committee was created, budget briefings were held during the interim. So that is to say that the LBC heard this same presentation that you all are hearing today with the agency budget requests. And then the LBC then during that process did make a series of recommendations, both globally and then in some parts to individual agency individual agency budgets. And anything that the LBC did during the interim in regard to what the recommendations are noted on these budget summaries directly underneath the bullet where it says agency. And I would note for the committee and for the audience as well is that when we continue and move forward in this process, this document, this budget summary document that is in front of you all today will be updated with any recommendations that you all may make. So underneath item 2, if the committee were to delete the $2,100, it would say it would be a bullet, House Committee on Agriculture and Natural Resources budget, delete $2,100. Or if the committee accepts it, it would just say no changes similarly to that. So that's kind of the process, and it's a bit different than what we have done in the previous years. But then, like I say, the budget presentations to you all and then the legal mechanism in the budget bill is not dissimilar to what has happened in the past.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. When we flip over then to page number 4, that's where you will see the beginning, item number 3. That's attorney fees. The agency's request does include $1,500 for attorney fees. This is an increase of $1,500 for over 2025 approved budget. The agency is indicating that they are receiving more complaints year over year, therefore having to contract out for those legal services. I would note that the attorneys, that this agency, when you look back onto figure 7 on page 2, it shows you what their FTE count is. That's a full-time equivalency. The agency does not employ an attorney. The agency has a part-time executive director, clerical staff, investigator, and I forget the other one off the top of my head, Madam Chair. I apologize, but that is to say that they don't employ an attorney, and they use outside legal services for this. Item number 4 is communication. Agency's request includes $1,300 for various communication expenditures. That would be related to expenditures that are a part of the office and printing mailing for postage and postage services. The agency indicates that correspondence between licensees and then the requisite postage for such is increasing, and so therefore you see an increase of $1,300 over the agency's 2025 approved number. Item number 5, Madam Chair, is all other adjustments. That totals $882, and that is largely attributable to outside vendors for data and programming services. Madam Chair, I can move forward into FY 2027, or I can stand for questions.
Committee questions on 26? Seeing none, go ahead, Luke.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On page number 5 is the beginning of the FY 2027 analysis for the Board of Veterinary Examiners. Again, I'll point to figure 10 in this example, summary of budget request. You will notice right off the hop that several of these items are the same as what was discussed in FY 2026. Below that figure 10 item number 1, enhancement request. Similar to FY 2026, the agency did not submit any enhancement requests. Item number 2 is private vehicle miles. The agency's request does include an increase of $2,600 for private vehicle miles in 27. That is above the agency's 2025 approved number. Similar to 26, the agency indicates that there are some new board members. They live in the western part of the state, and so them commuting into town for board meetings is estimated to increase the expenditures for private vehicle miles for reimbursement for travel for those meetings. Flipping over then onto page number 6. At the top of page 6 is item number 3, that's group health insurance. The agency's request does include about $2,500 increase above the 25 approved number for group for group health insurance for 2027. That is because the employer contribution rates are estimated to increase. I would note that I do not believe that state employees payments for group health insurance are increasing. However, the employer contribution rates are increasing for those group health insurance costs in 27. Item number 4, those attorney's fees, similar again to 26. The agency's request is $2,500 above the 25 approved number, and that is because the agency indicates, and they continue to estimate increasing complaints and complaints being received each year. And so then contracting out for those legal services is an item that the agency is adding into their budget. Item number 5 is data and programming services. The agency's request includes $1,700 for data and programming services in 27. The investigators and inspectors that work for the agency are working in a more virtual environment. The agency indicates that these expenditures would be utilized to help with communication. Also, additionally, adding some software to help them complete inspections and follow up with complaints and registrations as well. That's $1,700 from the veterinary examiner's fee fund, item number 5. And I would note, Madam Chair, and I apologize for not mentioning earlier, but this agency is totally fee funded through their veterinary examiner's fee fund. And I'll speak to that a bit later at the end of the presentation here, at the end of this budget summary. So no state general fund dollars or any dollars outside of the veterinary examiner's fee fund are used by the agency for their operations each year. Item number 6 is communication. That's a $1,500 increase above the 2025 approved number. Similar to 26, Office for Printing and Mailing, the agency is estimating increased expenditures there for postage and postal services in 2027. Item number 7 are all other adjustments. That's an increase of $711, and that's mostly attributable to contribution rates to employer contribution rates for CAPERS in 2027. Madam Chair, I can stand for questions on 27, or I can explain the rest of the budget summary.
Questions, committee, about 2027? Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Flipping over then to page number 7, the agency will see a reference, the committee will see a reference table. This will be something that will be pervasive across all agencies heard by the committee this year, and that is to say that this goes back to FY 2027 to and through 2026, shows actual expenditures by the agency along FTE count, and that will then show a year-over-year change in expenditure, increase or decrease year over year. And then that then compares that to the consumer price index during the same period of time. Flipping over then to page 8, which is the final page of the budget summary, is a special revenue fund overview. A little bit different than what budget committees are used to seeing previously. This shows the beginning balances, revenues in, along with expenditures and estimated ending balances for the veterinary examiner's fee fund. This is something you will see for all regulatory boards and fee boards that you'll see here. And then in addition to that, figure 13 then is a fee schedule. As I indicated earlier, that this agency is entirely fee funded through fees paid by practitioners in the state. And you will see what those current fees are, along with statutory limits. And if there was a previous fee, that is to say, if this fee has been changed within the last 2 fiscal years. This agency has not changed their fees in the last 2 years. And those are the fees that are currently charged to practitioners in the state to practice veterinary medicine in Kansas. Madam Chair, I'd be happy to stand for questions, or as indicated earlier, Mark Olson is with us as well on WebEx, and I do believe he has some remarks for the committee.
Thank you, Luke. Nicely done. Questions from the committee? Representative Rogers.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I apologize for being late, but you'll figure out that's probably the case every day. Sorry, since I have such a far way to travel. Just a couple of questions, just so I understand. It's been a year since we've done these. And in previous budgets, I haven't dealt with private vehicle miles and additional attorney fees. So are those, Luke, are those added on every year? Or that's a flat, kind of a flat line balance, correct? But I thought I saw like in 27, it's 2,500 for attorney fees, and the year before it was 1,500. So just to kind of explain that to me again, as because it's not necessarily, since it's not a SGF, it's a fee fund. You know, I guess is it maybe I'm making it more complicated what it is. Is it simple math? There's no we're just adding every year, right? Rather than, because the numbers are pretty much the same. Have I confused you? I think I've confused me.
Madam Chair, Representative, no, I'm not confused. I do understand your question, and I'll attempt to answer it to the best of my ability.
Okay.
The private vehicle miles in this particular instance is related to the distance that these board members live from the agency headquarters. Agencies are given an opportunity to choose whether or not to reimburse for private vehicle miles or to do a rental car. They can also choose to do a rental car. The private vehicle mile reimbursement rate tracks with the budget indices that are produced each year. And I believe that tracks with some federal indices as well. Those rates per mile, right? It's a reimbursement per mile. So I forget what the actual dollar figure is per mile, but that can change from year to year, albeit not necessarily drastically. But what would change in this particular instance for this agency is just simply because of where the board members live, they will be traveling more miles.
Sure,
and
sure.
so just
Thanks, Madam Chair. I mean, I understand that part. I guess what I'm trying to get at is if we're looking at basically a zero, a budget that's not increasing in 26, we're 2,100 for those and 2,600 for 27. Are they anticipating new board members that live further away? And is there a statute? And I'll ask Mr. Olson that later, I guess. But since these are fee funded, I mean, there's not a whole lot we can do, and I do see where the balance is, and the balance looks like it's the ending balance is nice and it's not overly. So I just want to make sure that if we keep it the way it is, that will keep them as whole as possible. That's really kind of, I guess, what I'm getting at, Madam Chair. So thank you.
Okay. Other questions? Representative Carlin.
I see I made a note here the other day, and so maybe I got an answer, but I didn't write it down. The mobile clinic records audit, I need a little bit more information about that, and I wondered if that is adjusted. This is new, isn't it?
Madam Chair, Representative, I do believe the mobile clinics is a relatively new fee in comparison to those other fees that are listed on that fee schedule. However, I would defer to Mark to be able to answer that question a bit more completely.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, any other questions? If not, Dr. Olson, welcome to committee. Sorry you're not here.
Yeah, good afternoon. I was in our office in Wamego through Thursday, and I wasn't notified till I got back home that we had this hearing in the next 48 hours. So we had some other obligations to deal with. So I appreciate, can you hear me okay? And can you see me okay from where we're at?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'm Mark Olson. I'm the Executive Director for the Kansas Board of Veterinary Examiners, and I appreciate the opportunity to share with this legislative committee our budget that Luke just went through on 25 fiscal year with no changes, mild increases for fiscal year 26 and fiscal year 27. The questions that came up that I will answer before I go through, we had 4 FTEs. My position has moved back to 0.8 here about 4 years ago. So we have 3.8 FTEs. We have a full-time office administrative specialist. We have a full-time inspector that inspects all the veterinary premises across the state. And then we also have a full-time investigator that deals with the complaints to get back to the board members' probable cause committees to determine if there's any violations of the Practice Act. My position is 0.8. And so I believe the question came up about veterinary premises, specifically mobile premises. That became, it was found in 2017 that almost a third of our practices in Kansas were through mobile vehicles with no brick and mortar facilities. And so the board added the mobile ambulatory premise, and that's where that came into play. Basically, every owner of a premise that's registered with the Secretary of State needs to have a registration. Brick and mortars encapsulate about 2/3 of those, and the other third are the mobiles. That can be strictly a pickup with a vet box. That can be a full service mobile vehicle that can do everything you can do in a brick and mortar facility. That can be a consulting veterinary company that comes from out of state, swine consultants, cattle consultants, even equine consultants that come from out of state. If they practice in the state, they have to have a mobile ambulatory. And if they're in a group practice, it's just one premise for those. So if that might answer Representative Carlin's question. And I'll take more questions when I get wrapped up here. But basically, what the Board of Veterinary Examiners does, our job was started in 1907, established by the Kansas Legislature to protect the public regarding health, safety, and welfare regarding veterinary medicine in the state of Kansas. We deal with licensing veterinarians. We deal with registering veterinary technicians. We deal with registering veterinary premises. And then we also deal with public complaints. And public complaints are gone to a probable cause committee to determine if there's any violations of the Practice Act. Things that I think this committee will want to know, we have in your packet of information that was sent that you will have or have now. We have a little over 2,800 licensed veterinarians. Of that, 1,770 reside in the state of Kansas. We have veterinarians residing in 99 out of the 105 counties. The 5 counties that don't have a veterinarian residing are in the report: Hamilton, Jewell, Lincoln, Wallace, Wichita, and Woodson counties. But of those counties, there are veterinarians in surrounding counties that have been able to take care of the neighboring counties. With a little less than 3 million people in the state, we have, with those 1,770 veterinarians, it's basically one licensed veterinarian serves approximately 424 Kansas families if they average 4 members in a family. And that's just a mathematical evaluation. Not all people have animals, and there are families that are larger than that. We have a board of 7 members, and the 4 staff, and the other information. We have around just under 700, just a little over 700 veterinary technicians, and we have 600 and I think there's around 630 veterinary premises now. At the end of our fiscal year, we were a little less than that, but we continue to get more mobile ambulatory premises. And Madam Chair, I would open for questions or anything else that you'd like to know.
Thank you, Dr. Olson. Committee, questions?
Thank you. If I could follow up, I guess, Mark, my question, actually, you answered it very well, but I also want to know, we've got the mobile clinic records audit shows that under that we have a current fee of $75 with a statutory limit of $150. So I just kind of was wondering how that's working, and do we expect to hit that limit, or are we seeing more mobile units? I assume so, the way you described.
Yes. Yeah, we continue to see more mobile units in the state compared to the brick and mortars. And I think that's related to the input cost of getting a clinic started. as new graduates come out. They have chosen to go that way, but there's still a lot that join up into corporate practices or brick and mortar facilities. To answer your question about the funding, it's $150 to apply the first time, and that includes the application and the initial inspection. And the renewals are what are $75. And so, obviously, with increased cost over a period of time, we've got some flexibility to be able to raise that in rules down the road.
Okay, thank you. That does help to understand better what you're doing. Thank you.
And then I would
Madam
also
Chair.
answer Representative Rogers' question in regards to attorney fees and added vehicle miles. We are fee funded, and we determine, how the breakout of that budget is, but it has to be reported to the Division of Budget and to all these committees and to the full legislature as well as to the governor. And we had a change in 2 board members that were close to our agency headquarters. Those reimbursable miles are in relationship to in-person board meetings. And now that we have 2 board members that are in western Kansas, they drive a lot further. And when they come multiple times a year, that's where those fees come into play. The attorney fees is under, we're charged an hourly rate. And our complaint process has increased over the last couple of years. And we've had to use more hourly billing. But that's an unknown whether that's going to continue to be higher. That will eventually go back down. But that's what that's for projected fees that we might need for attorneys. Does that help answer your question, Representative Rogers, or did I send you down the wrong road?
Representative Rogers.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, yes and no. I mean, I understand kind of where that came from. I'm just, and again, you have a lot of autonomy in your budget. Just want to make sure as the numbers add up, if you're doubling that every year, or if it's just kind of a keeping it the same. That's simply all I am. And Madam Chair, if I may, while I have him on, Dr. Olson, your fees, you've only capped, looks like a handful, 5 maybe. Are they? Do you think those will stay level again for a while? Are they still? Are they? It looks to me like you're meeting the need because you still have a $200,000 ending balance, and you're able to make those fees affordable. Is that kind of? I don't know, put words in your mouth, but is that kind of what you're thinking?
Presently, we're okay, but you can see on page 8, and if you don't have that, I'm sorry that you didn't have it in time. I sent it out yesterday. The ending balances, the majority of our fees for the fee-funded agency are based on renewals each year. A veterinary renewal is capped at $100, and we're capped there. The veterinary technician renewal is capped at $25, and the premise registration renewal is capped at $50. So we're capped there. And that's where I would say 80% of our budget comes from those 3 numbers. So obviously we're looking to increase our statutory fee limits through we'll have to have legislative a bill to get that taken care of for long term. Short term, we're okay, but you can see the ending balances. If everything stays the same, we'll continue to decrease as we move forward.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other? Representative Curtis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And if it's okay, I got a couple of questions and areas I'd like to kind of explore. And thank you, Director, for being here with us today. So I'm looking at your map of the veterinarians across the state. Is he still with us, I hope? Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Camera's on me, sorry. I see that. So my question is, are we meeting the demand? I mean, do we have the veterinarians that we need to meet the demand that we have across the state? And as I'm looking at it, I see that the majority of our veterinarians in our state are concentrated in Johnson County. There's like 396 veterinarians there. There's more veterinarians there than anywhere else in our state. And so I guess that's my question. Are we meeting the demand? What are some things that we probably need to keep in mind? Do we have some scholarship programs that would be available to make sure that we have the veterinarian services that we need in those rural counties, as well as in our urban counties that are very challenged now with a lot of loose animals that then become a problem across the state? So I know that's a little bit out of your area, but as I'm looking at this map, I'm just like, it just really feels to me that perhaps we're not meeting the demand and we need to be considering some other things.
Well, that's an excellent question. And the crystal ball on that, I believe presently, with the population that we have and the number of veterinarians that are presently practicing, this doesn't show the age of the veterinarians that are in practice and how many are going to retire within the next 5 to 10 years and how many are just coming in. But I believe the work that's been done with the KVMA and with the college and through prior legislative sessions, the veterinary school presently graduates 120 veterinarians plus or minus each year. And because in-state tuition is a lower revenue stream than out-of-state tuition, there has been greater percentage that have come in out-of-state than in-state in order for everything to be balanced at the veterinary school. I visited with the dean of the school. The goal would be to have half of the students be from in-state to meet the needs long-term for the state of Kansas, and have half of those being from out-of-state. And that is the goal that we're working on to get there. When you have more people in Johnson County and more people in Sedgwick County and those surrounding counties around the metropolitan areas, there's just more people, and it just takes more veterinarians to deal with that influx. Kansas is fortunate to have veterinarians across the entire state, and there are lots of folks that believe we have enough veterinarians right now. But what will the trend be as the aging population retires? And also, we have to have a continual influx of new veterinarians joining and staying in the state. If we educate people from out of state, it's hard to keep them in our state. And we educate people in state, we'll have a better chance. And all the counties, if you can find kids that are from those counties that want to go back to those counties. Obviously, I'm a rural kid from Rawlins County, and I went back home and I had a practice in Norton, Decatur, and Sheridan County, and brought in several veterinarians, and I wouldn't trade that experience for anything. And so obviously you have to match the type of people to the type of work. Not everybody wants to do food animal, and a lot of people want to do small animal. And so you have to take a look at that when you through your application process. So I don't know if I can specifically say exactly what needs to take place, but I think at the end of the day, we need a good balance of the different animal type practitioners, and we need to have them be willing to want to stay in Kansas to meet the demands as people retire. If that answers your question, or did I leave out part of it?
Yes, thank you. That does answer my question, and I'm glad to know that there is some effort being made to make sure that we're getting students that are going to go to school here and then stay here and practice here, because just looking at that map, we desperately need that. And then my second question, the other area I wanted to ask you about is I noticed in your printed remarks that you do mention that part of your responsibility is to deal with those complaints of disease transmission from animals to humans. And I'm just kind of curious, are you seeing more incidences of that? Has that area grown as far as an area that you all are having to investigate?
Our board doesn't see very many of those at all. Most of the complaints that we deal with are complaints from the public on veterinary services or possibly on people trying to practice without a license. But the majority of them are public complaints on veterinarians themselves. The Kansas Department of Agriculture Livestock Commissioner works specifically with a lot of the animal-to-animal transmission and diseases that could be spread over to people, and public health and them and us work together on that. But we're not seeing a big increase in that. Obviously, there is a concern what's gone on with bird flu across the whole country and even around the world. And if that's a concern, but that's a very minimal part of our business.
Thank you very much.
Representative Long.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, sir, for being with us today and answering these questions. When we talk about this map about veterinarians located across the state, puts me in mind of the cattle on feed numbers and the feed yards in western Kansas, the dairies in western Kansas. Is it true that there are veterinarians that work for feed yards and dairies as an employee and may not actually practice as a veterinarian, but they don't have a private practice, they're an employee of a feed yard or a dairy? How does that fall into this fee structure? And are those numbers actually on the map that Representative Curtis has brought up?
That's a great question. Consulting veterinarians are hired by large feedlots to bring in consulting veterinarians to do a lot of the veterinary work. There's also production veterinarians that are within those counties that are included. But we have out-of-state consultants that don't live in Kansas that were not included in the map because if they don't live or don't have a practice in this state, they are not included. So that would not be included with that. But in regards to the premise registration, for those people that come from out of state and practice in Kansas in feedlot or dairy situations, they have to have a premise registration and they have to have a Kansas veterinary license, but they don't reside or have a practice in this state, so they're not on the map.
All right. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions? If not, we'll close the hearing on the Veterinary Board of Examiners and we'll open up the Board of Accountancy. Charday, would you like to give us an overview, please?
Good afternoon. My name is Charday Kane with Legislative Research. Before I begin, I would like to draw your attention to page 5 and page 7, item number 4. There is a typo. It should read, the agency is requesting to decrease their official hospitality spending limit to $1,600, not $1,400. On both of those pages for fiscal year 2026 and fiscal year 2027.
Charday, the old copies that I sent out have 1,600 from 1,800.
Okay.
And the new copies that the audience might have might already say 1,600. We're just trying to clarify the first set of notes that the committee got, so. So they're going down in their budget from 1,800 for hospitality to 1,600. Thank you.
Okay. I would also note that the Executive Director, Mindy Speck, is here in the audience to answer any questions that you may have. The Board of Accountancy provides for the certification and regulation of certified public accountants within the state of Kansas. The board may adopt and amend rules and regulations that govern the practice of accountancy, such as the educational qualifications of licensees and the professional ethics by which accountants must abide. On page 2, in the middle, in figure 3, the fiscal year 2025 agency request is for $534,000, all from the Board of Accountancy Fee Fund. That is an increase of $51,600 or 10.7%. In figure 4, the summary of budget requests lays out each item that is changing. Item number 1, the agency did not have any SGF funds reappropriated from fiscal year 2024 into fiscal year 2025. Item number 2 is related to contractual services. The agency is requesting $36,000, all from the Board of Accountancy Fee Fund for the licensing database in fiscal year 2025. The fees currently being paid to OITS will need to continue to be paid as the database conversion did not occur as planned. That conversion is expected to take place in fiscal year 2027 as of the time of this submission. The Legislative Budget Committee did delete all enhancements, so this supplemental and enhancement request, so this supplemental request was deleted. Item number 3 on page 3. The agency is requesting $15,000, all from the Board of Accountancy Fee Fund for salary increases due to the executive director remaining on staff and temporary staffing during the transition in fiscal year 2025. So the previous executive director retired recently. The Legislative Budget Committee deleted this supplemental request as well. Item number 4, there were no other changes in fiscal year 2025, and I can stand for questions on fiscal year 2025.
Questions, committee? So as I understand it, if the LBC deleted those, that is the current budget that we're looking at.
Correct. That is
Okay,
what
so
is in House Bill 2007.
Okay, thank you. Proceed.
On page 4, in figure 6, fiscal year 2026, the agency request is $483,965. This is an increase of $1,196 or 0.2% above the approved amount. In figure number 7, you can see the summary of budget requests. Item number 1, the agency request did not include any enhancement requests for fiscal year 2026. Item number 2, the agency request includes a deletion of $21,000 for salaries and wages. The Legislative Budget Committee did not make any changes. Item number 3, the agency request includes adding $22,000 for contractual services, including dues and subscriptions, rent, and computer programming. On page 5, the Legislative Budget Committee did not make any changes. Item number 4, the agency is requesting to decrease the official hospitality spending limit to $1,600. The Legislative Budget Committee did not make any changes. And item number 5, all other adjustments. The agency request includes adding $725 for printing and computer cartridges, and the Legislative Budget Committee did not make any adjustments.
Any questions there? Okay, go ahead.
On page 6, you'll find fiscal year 2027. In figure 9, the fiscal year 2027 agency's request is $489,996. This is $7,227 or 1.5% above the 2025 approved amount. In figure 10, you can see those changes. Item number 1, the agency's request does not include any enhancement requests. Item number 2, the agency's request includes a decrease of $19,700 in salaries and wages expenditures. The Legislative Budget Committee did not make any changes to that adjustment. Item number 3, the agency's request includes an increase of $26,000 in contractual services. On page 7, the Legislative Budget Committee did not make any changes to that one. Item number 4, again, you'll see the hospitality limitation decrease. And item number 5 is an addition of $925 for stationery and office supplies, and the Legislative Budget Committee did not make any adjustments to that. I just note that the remaining document pages 8 and 9 are reference tables, and if you have any questions, I can answer them.
Thank you, Sharday. Questions? Representative Curtis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess I just have a question on that very first item that where the legislative budget did not recommend, I think it was like a salary adjustment due to.
Number 2, supplemental.
Yeah, there you go. So there it is. No, I don't think that was it.
On page 2.
Go ahead. Let me pass.
Representative Roth.
Well, I see that on page 2, supplemental request contractual services, that the Budget Committee deleted that from their request. And then on page 3, the supplemental request salary increases, they deleted 15,256 also from their request. So what is the impact to the overall agency budget by not fulfilling those requests? Mine too.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
The agency may be able to speak more to how that will impact them directly. However, it would be a deletion of $51,000 to their overall budget.
Any other questions? Okay, let's move on to having the representative from the Board of Accountancy, and you said her name was Mindy Speck. Okay, Mindy? Welcome to committee.
Thank you.
Could you please state your name for the record? Thank you.
My name is Mindy Speck, the new executive director for Board of Accountancy. Thank you for having me. What questions would you have for me?
Okay, does the committee have questions? And I think that probably dovetails right into Representative Roth's question.
Okay.
So I'm sure you heard what I just asked the revisor's office, right? From research office. The question is, on page 2, for the highlights of 2025 budget, Legislative Budget Committee did not approve the $36,332 from the fee fund for the request for contractual services. And then on page 3, the supplemental request for salary increases of $15,256, Legislative Budget Committee did not approve those. And so what is the impact to your board for that, if those aren't included in your request?
Quite honestly, I haven't had the opportunity to really deep dive in and analyze this budget. I do know for the salary increase, there was an overlap of myself and the executive director for training purposes for 1 month. So that was the need for the request for the increase. And then for the increase for contractual services, I believe that was for the implementation for software, which will not actually be implemented for another 18 months. So.
All right, that answers my question.
Does that answer your question?
Thank you.
Representative Curtis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to follow up on that. So if we do not add that $15,256 that was requested for the interim period where you had the person retiring there and you there, will that put your agency, can your agency cover that without that addition? Okay, so you already have the funds to cover that, so that deleting that did not hurt your budget?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Mindy? Representative Carlin.
Thank you. This is kind of a bit of a different year for this with the LBC. I don't want you to not be able to present your budget just because the staff presented the facts. You still should be able to present your needs to us. And these things were done in Legislative Budget Committee to simplify process. So if you justify to us, we can add things.
Okay.
So I don't want, I mean, I want everybody to get that because it's your opportunity to tell us what you need, and then we have the opportunity to add things to the budget. That was just a starting point across the board for all budgets, okay?
Thank you very
So-
much.
And I was in that
appreciate
committee, I don't know who else was in there, but it was unusual, and I'm trying to clarify that. So I would like, Madam Chair, for her to proceed presenting her case for her budget as she feels, whatever she was going to tell us when she walked in.
Oh, well, thank you very much. From a very high-level overview, from what I have reviewed of this budget, it appears very satisfactory to me. I did not feel like there were any deficits or anything that should be altered. It appears right on target where it should be. And, you know, best case scenario, I do feel like it's very adequate, it fits our purpose, fits our needs, and satisfactory to me. So that being said, I've only been here a month, so best case scenario, I do feel satisfied with this budget. I've yet to discuss it with our board. Our first board meeting is tomorrow, so, but I do feel satisfied from the quick high-level overview I've done the last couple of days of it, so. But thank you. I greatly appreciate your input and your patience with me as I go through this and
Representative Rogers.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Welcome aboard.
thank you.
Just take a breath. It's okay.
Thank you.
Although-
I'm excited to be here.
Although, you know, and this is new this year of how we're doing things. Normally, there's a time for you and us to both catch our breath and to be prepared. You're not the first one that's come into a new position and all of a sudden you have to present and you go, well, it looks good to me. What I would suggest is you get a chance to meet with your board tomorrow. If there is something that, oh, that doesn't make sense, come to the chair. As we will not do our deliberations today, are we, or do we have to?
We may if there's no objection.
Well, I guess that will be up to you, Madam Chair, and everybody else. Okay. If you're comfortable, I mean, that's fine, but I think it's going to be very difficult if you come back and say, oh, we need $25,000 and it's already been passed out to try to.
I really do not foresee that happening. I know
Okay.
Susan, who was here for many, many years, went through this or had prepared the budget, and she's very competent. So I feel pretty comfortable knowing that, her knowledge behind me.
Did she use a pencil or a pen to put it together?
Pretty sure she used a pen, knowing her.
Accountant joke, sorry.
So,
Okay, well, I just want, Madam Chair, and again, I'm long on the two, so again, welcome aboard, but it's fine. I just want to make sure that we don't, because this is kind of a new process, and I don't want to be the committee that has to go back and, we're here to defend you in front of the appropriations, but Representative Curtis and Representative Alcala will have to do it.
Thank you, Representative Rogers. I look forward to being Representative Alcala.
That's sure, but I would tell you, word to the wise is sufficient.
thank you.
So, Ms. Speck, this is my first time too. So
okay.
we're doing this together.
Thank you.
So are there any other questions for the Board of Accountancy budget? Representative Carlin.
So, thank you, Madam Chair. My question is on the second part, not the salary, but the contractual services. I'm sorry, did you tell me that was equipment? Information technology, what?
Actually, that is a new software that we're
Software, that's
implementing.
equipment. That's equipment, right?
It is actually a software database. It's replacing our old database.
Is this, thank you, is this then, the way you said it makes me ask the question, I wouldn't have caught it by reading it, and so you maybe I'm confused, but does it seem to me that in the future you're going to need more money? Is this just a down payment on this, or is this it?
This is not it because it's not implemented. So my
18
understanding
months.
is time, the time with the OTIS team, and then final installation will be more money down the road, is my understanding.
Because it doesn't show me what the total cost is. I just don't want you to be short and come in next year and wanting 80,000 and this committee saying, oh, no, no, no. So I don't understand why we need 36,000 in this budget that the LBC deleted when you aren't going to have it for 18 months and I don't know how much the out years is. I mean, you understand my concern.
I do understand, and I will clarify that because that's a very good question. So I'll clarify the need for that and get back to you this afternoon. What time would you need an answer? Because that is a very good question.
Well, that's my concern is that what we did in LBC was a blanket, we're not going to consider these in the LBC time of 5 days. So all budgets have these kinds of remarks on them. And that's, since you're the second budget, that makes it hard for me to be comfortable with saying, yes, this is adequate. I don't know what it does to you next year, and if this committee next year would say we can't do it because it's too big of an increase. I just don't know.
Madam Chair,
Representative Rogers.
just, I believe, and not to get you in the weeds on this, we have discussed this, other appropriators chime in. We've talked about Otis and those type of things, and last year, didn't we pull all this out? And then, so I think that may be why Representative Carlin is, because I think all these things we pulled out either to get a bigger, better deal. And so that's why I believe why that got pulled out. It wasn't to leave you in the loop and to not do it, but I think last year, I believe Representative Hoffman made a blanket motion to pull all that back in. So that's probably why it shows up. I don't think it's to not being allowed to do it. I think it's a matter of procedure. Okay?
So it's still coming their
I believe
way.
it is, but I believe it may, if I recall, it's like its own kind of, all these things, all these upgrades are coming through Otis and that, whatever committee that is. That's what I'm recalling. So yeah.
And we are sharing it with dental and maybe the Department of Veterinarian. We are sharing this software. So it's not just for the Board of Accountancy,
Right.
if that makes more sense.
Representative Roth.
From my IT side, what I'm reading here is in 25, they're not really doing anything with the database enhancement. But if you look in 26 and 27, then they're asking for in 26, $26,000, which LBC approved, and then that was 27, and then in 26, they asked for $21,797, which they approved. So it's just, there's nothing happening in this period of time, this budget season. And so I agree with Representative Rogers, it's been pulled out because nothing's going on, but it's all going to start in 26.
Representative Carlin.
Thank you for clearing that up, because that's what I was getting at, is what's down the road, and I didn't turn the page. I'm sorry, but I think we just have to all watch these things closely. Thank you.
Representative Curtis.
And Madam Chair, just not to belabor this, but just to add a little bit more, I'm on the Joint Committee of Information Technology, and so we work real close with Otis, and there are a lot of fee-funded agencies that do licensing. There's no way for them all to individually purchase different software programs. So Otis is working with all those agencies to try to bring them in, use the same kind of, and it saves us money across the board. So that was part of like pulling out all of those IT projects so that we could look at them in a more global way to make sure that we're maximizing.
I appreciate that very much. We're trying to make things more efficient. So Any other questions, comments for the Board of Accountancy budget? If not, thank you very much for presenting. Thank you. I keep turning my mic on and off at the wrong time. So are there any objections to working these budgets today, to making recommendations? Seeing none, we will start with the Board of Veterinary Examiners. Does anyone have any adjustments they would like to make?
Madam Chair.
Representative Carlin.
I think maybe, and I didn't read the rule on this, but normally we ask for a motion to approve the budget and then we discuss it. So I would move to approve the budget for the Board of Veterinary Examiners, and then we proceed.
So Dylan told me last week that we do not need a motion to work it. We need a motion to go ahead and either pass it out or not pass it out. Yeah.
I meant, my
Yeah.
motion was to approve the budget as presented.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So no discussion? I was going to ask for discussion first.
No, the discussion follows the motion.
Yeah, that's,
Aye.
It's complicated in other budgets.
okay.
Second. You second?
We had a second.
Webb second. So,
And Madam Chair, I just want to make sure that the budget, the motion includes passing it out favorable for passage out of this committee. Not just affirming the budget, but passing it out favorable by the committee.
Luke, are you still on? Probably not.
Yes, no, yes, I am, Madam Chair. I apologize.
So-
Yes, so, go ahead.
So you tell me, do we get a motion to work it and then another motion to send it out? Or do we just start working the bill and then make one motion to send it out of committee, either as is or as amended?
Sure, I can answer that, or and then David too, or Sharday, feel free to speak up here. But I've seen every committee or budget chair will maybe do things just a slight bit different. So if you'd like to have a motion to, as Representative Carlin had made a motion to approve the budget, and then a second, and then following that with discussion. At the end of discussion, then a vote to approve the budget. That could absolutely be a route that you could go if you want to have a motion to open up working the budget, and then a separate motion to kicking it out. That would absolutely be something you could do as well. I've seen it done a couple of different ways.
But we don't need, it's not required to have a motion to work the budget.
That's right. That's right.
My understanding is, Representative or Chair Mosher, if that was the direction and whatnot given by Dylan, that would be correct. I also see David nodding, so I appreciate that, David.
Thank you, David. You are an unutilized jewel. I'm sorry. I should have asked you.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, the kind of the procedural motion, I mean, is up to the chair as you have full charge in this sort of, the committee process is typically informal, but so it's really just up to you how you want to proceed with the chair. I mean, there's not a requirement that a motion be made to open work on the budget. It can be a.
Okay, thank you.
Is a requirement to pass it out.
Yes, but right now we're gonna, does anybody have any questions about the Board of Veterinary Examiners or any concerns? Seeing, you have a concern. Representative Curtis.
I was just going to comment that I thought the budget looked good. I didn't see anything that caused me any alarm or any issues that they raised to cause any amendments. I appreciate the dialogue that we had and got great information on our veterinarians that we need. But no, I definitely think that their budget looks in good shape.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions, comments? If not, is there a motion to report this budget out favorably for passage?
I so move.
Okay. I got to get into this rhythm of saying representative. Representative Carlin moved it, seconded by Representative Long. Any other questions? If not, all those in favor of approving the Board of Veterinary Examiners budget as it is presented, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried. That one passed. All right, let's go on to the Board of Accountancy. Questions, comments, concerns about that budget? Anyone? Representative Rogers.
Madam Chair, I move we approve the Board of Accountancy budget for fiscal 26 and 7 favorably as submitted.
Moved by
25,
Representative
27,
Rogers.
25, 26, oh, that's right. It's just
26, 27.
25, 26, and 27?
25 and 26.
Oh, that's right, these are the FIFA, I'm sorry,
Okay.
yes. Y'all know
And
what I
you
mean.
are a jewel, too.
Yes.
So moved by Rogers, seconded by Alcala. Any other comments, questions? Okay, all those in favor of moving the Board of Accountancy budget out as presented, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion carried. That budget has been passed out. Looking ahead to Tuesday, we're going to hear the Corporation Commission budget and the Citizens Utility Ratepayers Board budget. So we'll be hearing two budgets. We'll have a presentation from Commerce about the Community Development Block Grant. And then the rest of the week will be, the next day we'll be working those two budgets. And then on Thursday, just to give you a brief overview, we'll hear the state fair budget and we'll have a presentation by Junior Achievement. So in a nutshell, that's what we're going to do. We won't meet tomorrow and we won't meet next Friday. So if you, and again, my apologies for not getting things on the S drive. That was my fault because I didn't realize, and my committee assistant has done a great job and I failed to have her get them on there. But next week, we'll get you everything on the S drive. And I'm trying to get the budgets in your hands 48 hours in advance, but that's not going to work on Monday because we're not here on Monday. So we'll get you those first thing Tuesday morning, so you'll have the morning to at least look through them. But I feel like everybody has really garnered on to the budgets and how they work. And so we'll have, you know, our experts give us information and then testimony from the agencies. And so going forward, we'll get you the state fair budget a couple days before, but I apologize, on Tuesday, that one's going to be close. But I would like to have them in your hands so you can glance through them before we meet them here. So with that, we will see you Monday. We are adjourned.